Welcome to the Rock's Back Pages podcast. I'm Barney Hoskins, and I'm in our Hammersmith headquarters with my colleagues Mark Pringle.
Hi, Barney.
And Jasper Mirison-Bowie.
Hello, Barney.
And joining us for this episode is Mr. Simon Raymonde. Hi, Simon.
Hello to all of you.
Thank you for coming in from Sussex to talk about your career and your brand new book, In One Ear, which is primarily about the beloved Cocteau Twins, but also about your father, Ivor, and your record label, Bella Union, and other stuff too. For me, as a Cocteaus fanboy, the book was pure catnip, but it's no less fascinating on the subject of your dad and, you know, his long career as a musician and arranger in the London session world. So if it's okay with you, we'll start with Ivor Raymonde, who, you know, was a kind of cult figure to me, you know, when I was first writing about music, early 80s, you know, particularly like with Julian Copes, Scott Walker, we started to hear about Ivor Raymonde. So before I knew about you or the Cocteaus. In the book, you make it clear that you never felt very close to your dad, which was hardly unusual for, you know, that generation of workaholic fathers. I had one of those. In some senses, my dad was a stranger to me. But in 2018, you released the first of 2 volumes of tracks arranged by Ivor, which stretch from like Billy Fury's Halfway to Paradise all the way through to Ian Dury's Superman's Big Sister, which I've forgotten he worked on. And there's a long section in the book, The Ballad of Ivor Raymonde, which is like very sort of self-contained. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what are your memories of growing up with Ivor? You talk about Scott Walker, 5 years old, and Scott Walker sitting in the garden having tea with your mum and dad, which is sort of, obviously at 5 you're not going, wow, you know. What sort of memories do you have, intimations of what your father was doing?
Well, I mean, you know, I guess for any 5-year-old, you don't really have an awareness of their career because you don't know what a career is. You know, you don't know what he's really doing. And arranging music, what does that even mean to a 5-year-old? So I was definitely in a whole different world at that point, you know, playing football with my friends, hanging out, just being a 5-year-old. Yeah. But I did the Scott Walker arrival at the house. It was significant because, you know, my sisters, who are considerably older than me, they're like, maybe 8-10 years older than me. Okay. They were, of course, in love with this very beautiful man, you know, who's pretty much a big pop star at the time. So when he's coming to the house, it is an event, and I noticed lots of sort of shuffling around and cakes being made, and, you know, teapots, the good teapots coming out. Yeah, exactly, the good china coming out. So, I mean, I knew something was happening. I couldn't really explain to you what that felt like, other than, you know, it was an occasion probably like royalty. You know, the Queen's coming.
Yes.
Scott Walker's coming.
This is about 1967, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I'm literally 5 years old, and I remember looking out the window and seeing this sort of very gorgeous-looking man in the garden and just thinking, oh, wow. That's about it, really. And, you know, my those very fleeting views of my father at work or discussing musical things was about all I got, you know. It wasn't, I think Petula Clark came to the house once, but I don't remember it like I do the Scott Walker thing, because I don't think anyone else in the house was that bothered. So, yeah, my memories of Dad are very fleeting, mostly just going to football together, watching boxing together, and really not much more. When did you first go
to a football match with
when I was 7. He took me to Spurs.
Yeah.
So his family are all Jewish from North London and Moswell and whatnot, all around that area. And half his family were Arsenal supporters, and the other half were Spurs supporters.
Story.
That's a very familiar story.
My first wife was Jewish, so I very much had that Spurs-Arsenal split thing in her extended family.
It's quite strange, you know, going down to you know, my cousins for Sunday lunch, and, you know, half the family, you know, wearing Arsenal strips and the other half wearing Spurs strips. I mean, my auntie, Dad's sister, she actually died, had a heart attack at the cup final in 1982.
No.
Which I was at. You know, I didn't know she was there until after, of course. But, I mean, what a way to go. Thankfully, we did win.
Getting your priorities absolutely right now.
Well, at least she went out on a high.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. For any listeners who are not familiar with the name, I mean, Ivor Raymonde arranged some of the kind of biggest hits in kind of British pop in the 60s. We've mentioned Scott Walker, and so the Walker Brothers, most of their biggest hits, or a good number of their biggest hits,
certainly
were arranged by your dad.
Yeah, certainly all the string arrangements for The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore, Make It Easy on Yourself.
Yeah.
Those two, I suppose, were the biggest hits at the time.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of other tracks that are equally wonderful that he worked on.
And I mean, the other name that many of us associate with your father, obviously, is Dusty Springfield.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that they're releasing these BBC sessions next month, which stretch from about 1962 to 1970. There's 3 tracks by the Springfields, and it goes right up to kind of like Brand New Me. And we have had for quite a long time this Dusty Springfield audio interview that we couldn't use, but through the miracles of technology, everything that's kind of coming on in leaps and bounds, Jasper. I mean, really just extraordinary. We were able to turn it into something that you can
Listen to
hear and understand.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask Mark to tell us about this audio interview.
Well, first of all, Barney and I listened to it to edit it. Barney listened to it afterwards. We both sort of fell in love with Dusty Springfield just listening to this interview. She's so interesting. She's so sparky. She goes right back to her involvement with Ready, Steady, Go via Vicky Wickham as much as anything else, which is around the time of her very first single, which we will talk about shortly. She talks about her love of black music and its influence on her. I mean, I read an interview with her from way back when she talks about being in Nashville with the Springfields and hearing Dionne Warwick, and just saying, this is what I need, you know.
Right.
So she talks about that. Let's listen to this. It's about being a white soul singer.
It was that time, and subsequently there've been much better white soul singers. But the fact is that there was a space for that, and I was heavily influenced by black music. So my version of that was what became popular there. No one had done that before, and there was a real space for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but there was, which was very fortunate for me, because I got to sort of, I wasn't the only one who was trying to use those influences. I mean, the Beatles were heavily influenced by old Motown.
Also Lulu.
Barry and Lulu was influenced. I mean, there were a lot of us that were heavily influenced. I was just perhaps more so because I had been here prior to that with the Springfields, and I had listened more.
Ever since we met, you had a hold on me. It happens to be true. I only want to be with you.
In a sense, that sort of when white English got into soul music was a kind of really key part of the sort of development of British pop, wasn't it?
No doubt.
Then she kind of leaps forward a few decades, talks about the film Scandal, which of course she did the theme tune with the Pet Shop Boys, and to how she loves the Fairlight, wishes the Fairlight had been around when she was younger, how she enjoys working with computerised music. Now this is, you can see Ira's a bit put out by this.
It's Ira Robbins.
Ira Robbins.
I can't remember if you mentioned
So I didn't mention that. No,
Yeah.
Ira Robbins was the interview. And she talks about the place of irony and cynicism in British pop. So let's have a listen to this clip.
Land is in the paper. She tried to go to Spain. She'll soon be in the dock and in the papers once again.
Bands like the Pet Shop Boys give off this air of, sort of smug, we don't like you and we're not, even remotely going to be friends with you.
Well, I mean, the Pet Shop Boys specifically made an art of being aloof and
Right.
offhand and deadpan, distant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not at all like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is an absolute front.
Mm-hmm.
And it has worked. It may annoy a lot of people. I think from the sound of it, it annoys you intensely.
It's just priceless,
I
isn't
know,
it?
it's so good. I mean, he throughout it, he's trying to get her to say how much she hates the modern world. And she's absolutely refusing to buy, which I think is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
She talks about black music today, how she loves Luther Vandross, because again, Ira's kind of saying, well, it's not very good these days. And Luther Vandross is just fantastic. She says how it's easier to work in studios today. She gets a vocal sound much easier than she did back in the day. About not being credited by Richard Carpenter for the song she sang on, which is she's clearly fairly pissed off about still. Talks about her upcoming album Reputation, which is of course involved Pet Shop Boys and many others. He asks her, about how she got a reputation for being difficult to work with. And she simply says, well, that's because people didn't take me as a woman seriously in the studio, and I knew what I wanted things to sound like. She talks about bass players who are unable to do the Motown bass parts that she wanted on songs, which is just really interesting hearing her saying all this. Then she talks about her friend and manager Vicky Wickham and mutual friend Nona Hendricks, and she talks about the songwriting standards today compared to the 60s. And again, she's very open to what's modern, which I thought was really good to hear, because so many people kind of fold their arms and go, everything's shit these days, Anyway, I absolutely completely fell in love with her.
She's so articulate in this interview. She's so bright and funny and likeable. It's a joy to listen to.
Do you want me to briefly talk about the piece that we put in about Dusty, or do you want to leave that?
No, I think that's a really good idea. Why? Yeah,
this is extraordinary. This is an interview with Ray Connolly of the Evening Standard in 1970. She says, there's one thing that's always annoyed me, and I'm going to get into something nasty here, but I've got to say it because so many other people say it to my face. Lots of people say I'm bent, and I've heard it so many times that I've almost learned to accept it. I don't go leaping around to all the gay clubs, but I can be very flattered. Girls run after me a lot, and it doesn't upset me. It upsets me when people insinuate things that aren't true. I couldn't stand to be thought of as a big butch lady, but I know that I'm perfectly capable of being swayed by a girl as by a boy. More and more people feel that way, and I don't see why I shouldn't. Now, that's pretty extraordinary. In 1970, she effectively outs herself. That's a really brave thing to do, I think. Don't you think?
I do. And I like the fact at the very end of it, she says to Ray Connolly, whose stuff is so great.
Yeah.
I mean, you recently got him on RBP, and it's a whole new world of stuff. She says, do you realise that what I've just said could put the final seal to my doom? I don't know, though. It might attract a whole new audience. That's the last... So it is an amazing thing to discover.
She found her perfect partners with the Pet Shop Boys, didn't she?
Absolutely.
She really did.
And those records, I think they're fantastic. Actually, it's probably the first Dusty Springfield record I actually paid for.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Because I got all the other ones.
Did you and Dan ever talk about Dusty? I know there's all these interviews.
Well, everything you've just spoken about there.
Okay.
I kind of knew all of that, but not the fine detail. Certainly, I can't remember whether the whole quote made it into the book, but there's a bit that illustrates what you said so perfectly about her being way ahead of her time, yet being a kind of character that a very male-dominated world of orchestrators and producers, studios, they didn't want to know what she thought about things. It was go and stand over there, there's the microphone, there's the orchestra, I'll tell you when to start singing. And there's a bit, maybe it's in the transcripts, and I can't remember if it made the book, but there's a bit where Dad was explaining that she said she wanted to move around during the recording, and the head engineer at the time was like, well, you can't do that because the vocal will sound weird if you're in the studio. I mean, you can do it on stage, of course, because it's different. But if you're in the studio, you've got to stand still. And she went, well, why? And he was like, well, he just couldn't really explain why. So she said, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the microphone and I'm going to move, because she loved to move. She loved to dance. And this was a big thing for her. So Dad just said, just let her do it. And she did it, and it sounded incredible.
And she talks about sort of, there's the producers reading a copy of Practical Electronics while she's having to sort of deal with the band, and stuff like that. Anyway, I think we all loved Dusty all along, but just this recent sort of your book and this interview is really sort of
Just a footnote to the Ira Raymonde section of this episode. I loved the fact that Ivor played Mellotron on the first Thin Lizzy album.
I know. Who knew?
That's a mind-blowing
fact. Is that
1971,
is it?
Yeah.
71? I mean, that's
another strange side note is that my brother is, at the moment, trying to get a musical about Phil Lynott off the ground.
Right. Yeah.
Which is because my brother was engineer on that first record.
Oh
too,
my God! Right. Okay.
which is also kind of mind blowing. So many things seem to sort of cross across my life like this. It's
I mean,
very
I'm
strange.
astonished there hasn't
things
yet been a
cross
kind
over.
of Phil Lynott sort of biopic, honestly, because I think it
that's
is an
all being
extraordinary
talked about
story.
right now,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's sort of inevitably going to happen, I would think.
Yeah.
He's such a remarkable figure.
Honestly, was my only excuse. I took your love and I used it.
Anyway, listen, thanks for talking about Ivor. I'm sure we could do a whole episode on Ivor Raymonde, but let's go back to the start of your own musical journey, Simon. You talk. I mean, it's a familiar story. There's kind of getting into punk rock, seeing punk bands, seeing post-punk bands. You the other day you did your My Life in Music thing for Uncut magazine, and it was sort of heavily post-punk, wasn't it? Yeah. So where I actually want to come in is working at the Beggars record store, and then Situation 2 records, the Drowning craze. So you were working at a record store and you had your band at the same time, that you were juggling those two things. Is that right?
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah.
So, like, I was living, in Redcliffe Gardens.
Right.
How did you know he'd lived in Redcliffe Gardens?
Well,
What did you say in the book?
actually, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, Paris Pullman. My parents used to take me to Paris Pullman to see like Kurosawa movies.
Yeah.
Right?
You mentioned that.
And then
I really miss it.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
And then going to the all-nighters when I was at art school, going to the all-nighters to watch all kind like Hell's Angels movies.
The Scala, at the Scala.
No, the Paris,
at the Paris
Pullman. Before they ruined it by putting a modern facade, it had this most fantastic curved facade with stars set in it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was just a marvellous place. So,
fantastic place.
we sort of
Yeah.
We were
geographically
treading the same pavements.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I lived there and used to go into the Beggars shop, which is just around the corner in Kenway Road, I think it was. And I didn't know the labels were upstairs. I mean, I started off just same as all of us, just being a massive fan, and would be in the shops, if not buying records because I might not have the money, certainly listening to them all. Used to go to Rough Trade, of course, as well. It wasn't just the Beggar shop. But I think because I went in there more, being the proximity so close to my flat, after a while, I think the guy there was just like, mate, why don't you just come and work here? You know more about this stuff than I do, So he gave me a Saturday job, and that Saturday job swiftly became an everyday job. And I thought it was the dream job.
Sure.
I really did. Working in a record shop was the dream job. And then obviously I was doing my little band thing at the time. I hadn't really kind of put two and two together that the people upstairs who I suddenly discovered were running record labels, maybe I could put some music their way. But that sort of ended up what happening because Steve, the guy that ran the shop, his brother was Peter Kent, who ran Situation 2. And I was a huge fan of Billy Mackenzie, the Associates,
Yeah,
the
likewise.
bands that were on Situation 2 at the time. Now, you had to walk through the shop to get to the record companies upstairs, which made it quite unique. So for all of us, for those two of us that were working in the shop, and for all the punters that were in the shop of an afternoon, you would often see, Nick Cave, Lydia Lunch, Billy Mackenzie wandering through.
I love the story about being kissed by Lydia.
Oh yeah, well yeah. She was really she was a really beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Very luscious red lips. And, as a 18-year-old, who hadn't had an awful lot of experience in that department, she was quite a woman.
Yeah,
quite recovered.
Quite terrifying, to be honest. Sort of terrifying and amazing all at the same time.
I knew you a bit, and terrifying and amazing. It's about right. She never kissed me on the lips, so I feel very hurt.
But so it is the reason I'm here. That shop is the reason I'm here. Everything significant that happened to me is still resonating.
Well, so you're in the shop early one morning, and these two young Scottish people come in.
I think it's actually three. I think because the original
Will was also with them.
My memory is that there were three people at the window. Well, they didn't come in, you see, because the shop wasn't open.
Oh.
They arrived quite early. I think about 9:30. We just got in to unpack some boxes and having a cup of coffee there, quietly discussing them.
So they're standing outside,
seeing the Buzzcocks the night before or whatever, and these sort of shadowy figures out. What's going on out there? And there's a little rap at the window, and went and opened the door. I said, "I'm sorry, we're not open for for another half hour, and they went, oh no, we come here to see Ivor watch Russell, and I was like, oh right, no, they won't be in for a while yet. It's
Ivor
the record company,
Ivor being
he's the boss
the
of
MD
4AD,
4AD, which was allied to Situation 2 or distributed.
Yeah, so it was Beggars Banquet,
Yeah.
Situation 2, and 4AD. So I think there was only 3 or 4 people upstairs, in general. So it was still very early days. This would have been like, I don't know, 1981 or something like that. I don't remember the exact dates, of course, but very early days. Probably before 4AD became the powerhouse it became, with all the beautiful designs. And this is sort of still early days.
Yeah.
So they'd come down to London to drop a cassette off to John Peel and a cassette off to Ivor.
Just two. That's all they needed.
We want to be on. We want to be on John Peel, and we want to be on 4AD, and that was it.
Yeah, pretty good.
2 good choices, and they got both of their wishes. Yeah,
this is extraordinary. I have this kind of really extraordinary memory of, because you've talked a lot about the birthday party. You write about the birthday. I think seeing the birthday party multiple times, as I did, and we must have been in the same venues. Several times, Moonlight Club, Rock Garden, etc., seeing Nick and his cronies. They were astonishing gigs, weren't they?
They really
and there was this gig at the venue where clearly Ivor or someone had said, the Cocteau Twins, we want them to be the support act for this venue show by the birthday party. And I, for whatever reason, because I was hanging out with the birthday party, was at the side of the stage, standing next to Liz and Robin and Will as they were about to go on. I mean... And they were shitting themselves. As when I interviewed Liz many years later, she said it was one of the most terrifying moments of her life, and she ran away and hid for a bit because she just couldn't do it. But they managed to pull her back, and then they went on and played. And you have a story about the Cocteaus and the birthday party in Scotland. I think you were sharing that. You said that Nick came on.
That was from the Jim Irvin piece.
That was from. Oh, I beg your pardon. That was from the Jim Irvin. Oh, there's a great. Yeah. Why don't you just tell us that? I beg your pardon. My brain gets mixed up.
So in the Jim Irvin piece that we're featuring from The Word in April 2006, there's a great reminiscence about the next time the birthday party played in Scotland. Cocteau Twins were supporting. Elizabeth apologised after every song. Remembers Wallace. Oh fuck, I'm sorry. Oh fuck, I'm really sorry. And then Nick Cave came on and mimicked her.
I wasn't there. I was before my time.
That was pre.
But I did have a birthday party reminiscence in the book, which is for my previous band before I joined the Cocteaus, the Drowning Crows. We got to support the birthday party at a place called the Africa Centre in Covent Garden.
I was there too. Yeah.
So that was that. And I probably was feeling a bit like Liz was on that night, like sort of looking up at there was only 5 years age difference between us, but to us they were like. They were gods. They were like, they were so much bigger and more important than we could ever dream to be.
They had bigger hair at that point.
That was an achievement. Yes, but I tried to borrow Tracy Pugh's bass rig because I didn't have anything at that point, and I asked him if I could use his, and he just sort of
said, "Fuck off."
Yeah,
mate.
just it wasn't. I don't think he was quite that abrupt, but he just was like, "No, like, of course not." Feeble man.
Tracy was one of the most extraordinary musicians I've ever met.
Yeah, absolutely amazing bass player, one of the greatest. So powerful.
Yeah.
But that was a beautiful.
Yeah, he had an extraordinary image as well. I mean, it was almost like a kind of
like a gay cowboy.
Cowboy sort of
cowboy.
thing. Yeah. No, really something. Cause that's the band of his that I liked the most was the Birthday Party. I never liked the Bad Seeds very much. Just musically, I thought the Birthday Party was extraordinary. But watching them live was always extraordinary. It was really
terrifying and amazing.
It really was. Yeah. I love watching Tracy Pugh as a bass player, but my favourite person in the band to watch was Roland S. Howard.
Oh, yes.
But most notably because he was the only person I've ever really seen that close who could smoke a cigarette in the middle of his mouth with his lips really. Not sort of pursed, but just really perfectly placed.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, his eyes were never fulled up. If I ever put a cigarette in my mouth and tried to play the bass, it would go straight in my eye. He never blinks. No. He could be the coolest person on the planet.
That's extraordinary.
Really,
So
really
I
blew
always
my
had to take
mind.
the fag out and stick it in the headstock of the
Yeah,
guitar.
exactly.
you know?
That's what everyone else did. He managed to smoke the whole cigarette and he never even sort of took it out of his mouth.
I think he worked really hard on his pose. Where the rest of us were playing tennis rackets in the mirror, and he already, probably at the age of 11, had a kind of fag sticking out his mouth. They were absolutely
Yeah,
fantastic.
extraordinary, as indeed were the Cocteau Twins. So let's talk about the Cocteaus.
Go on, then.
I mean, where do we start with these extraordinary, these extraordinary people that you...
Well, the very first session you did with them was actually the template for the way that you as a band continued, which was to just go in and start making music onto tape.
Yes.
That's it. I mean, and
So tell us about that first.
Yeah,
session.
so while I was working at the record shop, I had a little, or maybe it was just after it finished. Let's think about it. Yeah, maybe the job had finished, and I was doing a Saturday job at this little Camden 8-track studio, working as a T-boy kind of thing, helping set things up on the weekend. The owners went away for the weekend. I'd said to Robin and Liz, I knew they'd sort of wished that they could record on their own a bit more without engineers around. That was sort of the conversation I remembered. So I said, hey guys, I've got this studio for the weekend because the owner's gone away. Why don't you come and use it? I've got the key, so I can let you in. You can, mess about. So they turn up, and sort of very quickly it became apparent that they thought that I'd invited them to work on something together.
Right.
And I was quite quite surprised by that. But, not wanting to miss out on an opportunity, just sort of, we started doing something. Robin recorded little drum beats. He plugged his guitar in. I plugged my bass in. Liz went out to get some food, and I don't even remember how it happened, but like an hour or so later when she came back, she walked in and goes, what is that? That sounds amazing. And that was sort of it. We went home and I forgot about it.
Yeah.
I went back to my life. They went back to theirs. And then a couple of weeks later, the phone call from Robin asking me if I'd like to come and join the band.
Extraordinary.
So it was obviously an amazing thing, but it was almost unreal because, songwriting previously had always been quite a chore, quite difficult to get it right, loads of practicing, and with him, just him and me we just plugged it in, just happened, and I'm like, what's going on? It's so surreal.
It's extraordinary because you then, in the book, you talk about how that became effectively the template for the way in which you worked right through your time together, that you never demoed songs out. You would always just go in and start putting things down, and Liz would be somewhere else, and then she would then work her vocal around what you guys had done, but not necessarily where you imagine the vocals would go at all.
That's so true.
We
will have 10 instrumentals completely finished.
Right.
So, with the full structure, everything completely done before she even came in and started.
It's a fairly unique way of working, I think. I think very few bands would do that. It made sense, therefore, that you built your own studio and things like that, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because you needed to
That's what we needed to do, and it became very obvious. I mean, he was obviously thinking about it when we first did that initial track. Because, that recording actually ended up on the LP, The Pink Opaque. It's a song called Milli Millinery. It's that exact recording we did on that exact day.
Okay.
Well, obviously Liz came in and did some vocals at a later date, I think, but
It strikes me as quite a modern way to work, actually. I think a lot of people now with digital recording, with digital audio workstations and stuff, you will just put stuff down and then sort of piece things together. Lots of electronic music producers talk about doing that exactly, like just putting stuff in and then taking stuff out and then, just building a layer of stuff without necessarily having like pre-written
and then
anything.
sending it off to a vocalist in America or whatever.
So you were kind of way ahead of time in that sense of like just.
I think it was like Robin's bravado and his confidence in what was, being able to achieve what was in his head. I mean, I remember when 4AD said, so we need to. When you're ready, we'll book some studio time. And he was like, we're ready. And they went, you got the album, you got the songs? He went, yeah, we got it. Whole thing's ready. And I was looking at him like,
what?
We have?
There's a great quote in that Jim Irvin piece, actually, where, where he's reflecting on it. He says, "We thought we were fucking great. We had absolutely no idea that it might be difficult to get a record deal. Total naivety and youthful stupidity. We believed in what we did and assumed everyone else would too. We went to London with our little tapes and came back waiting for the phone to ring." It speaks to exactly that. It's like just total belief that it's going to work.
Yeah.
But it is, it is an extraordinary way of working. I mean, the idea, let's say, just the two of you, bass and guitar and a drum machine, will just make something that hung together in the studio rather than having anything pre-planned, anything pre-written, anything demoed. I mean, you're quite averse to demos, aren't you? As a sort of
I never made one since. I've never made one. I did before I joined the band, but I record in exactly the same way now when I make music that I did then, because to me, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
When you walk in the room, because I never had instruments at home during that period. I have a piano at home right now, but I feel that's very unusual. I don't really play it; it's just in the room. So I think it's when you go in the studio, you're like, wow, this is like, I can shut the door, I can turn off the phone, no one's going to bother me, and I can do music. This is so exciting, and I think that's how we all felt in the studio.
Yeah.
Just want to kind of, again, there may be listeners who've never heard the Cocteau Twins and don't know that, everyone from kind of Jeff Buckley to Prince were and Elton John, if you mentioned, massive fans of this group. And they're still incredibly influential, almost sort of kind of invented shoegazing or some kind of dream pop thing. So an incredibly important group to me. I mean, when I saw them play at the venue, I didn't think it was my kind of thing. I think I sort of thought of them as like bedsit banshees or something. And I'm like, and then Enemy asked me to review Head Over Heels. I don't think I'd listened to Garland, and I reviewed it, and I was just absolutely blown away by it. I mean, I still am. I went back, listened to it, and I just think it's astonishing. I mean, yes, it's this huge, it's all texture and vaporous bliss, but the fact is, it's beautiful, and you had a genius singer, just someone who just was just naturally brilliant at finding sort of vocal lines that were. I've dug out this interview that I did with you guys, this audio interview from 1996, and it kind of speaks to what you were just talking about and how you worked and how. So we'll listen to Liz, short clip with Liz, and then we'll listen to you and Robin talking about that methodology.
Yeah, well, if I cycle around a song, 15 minutes, I've got something to start with. But, because I don't really listen to, I just go in and we set up a song.
Yeah.
And so really I'm hearing it practically for the first time, unless I've been, in here and then through there, and I can hear it.
And then this is you in 1996, February 1996.
Well, you think it's good, and then you sort of listen to it, and then you think it's pretty good, and then Liz may hear it, and she'll say that's fucking brilliant. So you start believing that it's really good, and then you build on it, and Liz comes in, does the vocals, and then it sort of takes on a completely different personality. Because just as a piece of music, it's interesting enough to us and makes us feel good, and you can
hear vocal lines yourself?
I do sometimes, but
sometimes
never the ones that Liz.
Yeah,
thinks.
Liz.
No,
I mean, I still.
All in the right place.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's absolutely.
But that's quite clever about it.
What she does, but I mean, it's sort of. I don't know. I can't quite bring myself to believe that she actually means it to be genius. But it's just because the verses start here and choruses start there, but to Liz, that doesn't work at all. Yeah. But then what we end up with is so much fucking better than it would have been if the verses started there and the choruses started there.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. So you just thought of everything laterally, completely differently to anyone else I've ever worked with. Yeah.
So you'd have put this track down and have no idea of what.
No, because as you said there, I mean, sometimes you just come in literally and say, "Just play it to me now," and I'll see what I can come up with, and sort of almost improvise a vocal line, a melody, with words that she might have scribbled on a piece of paper. But what the gift was, whether it was intentional or not, I figure it wasn't, was not listening to it in the way that we had intended it,
Right.
with this sort of actually fairly straightforward formulaic structure
Sure.
of kind of verse, chorus, middle eight, chorus, chorus.
Yeah.
She would just start singing where it felt natural to her, and then when she'd be still singing her verse, we'd be looking at each other going, "What's she doing? She's singing over our chorus."
Right.
But then when you kind of listen back to it, you're like, that's genius.
Yeah.
It makes it far more interesting than it would have been if she'd have done it in how we might have perceived it to be the correct way.
That's fascinating.
It's like, for her, there wasn't a correct way, it was just the way.
Sure.
Some great songwriting advice in there. Don't stick to your 8 bars and your
Exactly.
16 bars and whatever structures. Just go across the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you made a number of albums of 4AD. Do you regret leaving 4AD? Do you think it harmed the band in some respects?
I mean, in hindsight, probably did.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't regret it because it happened, and the reasons we left were fair. You know, at the time, it was a bit like a poker game.
Right.
You know, where it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't go your way, you're like, oh, I don't really expect us to be leaving. I thought we would stay. Because I thought what other problems there were, because they were mostly financial and mostly kind of just relationships sort of falling away with Ivo.
Yeah.
If we'd have managed to rescue that, but we'd got a manager at this point, and
Right.
I think the manager from our perspective was to help rebuild the relationship. But I don't think Ivo looked at it that way. He looked at it more
As a threat.
Yes, more as a threat, and he didn't like him.
Because Ivo himself was struggling, because it wasn't long after that he basically had a nervous breakdown. I read somewhere that's
I don't know the full details, but what friends tell me
Yeah.
is that the band leaving 4AD really hurt him an awful lot,
Right.
and maybe was the start of him not being sure he wanted to carry on doing it.
And he ended up living in New Mexico.
Yeah.
I remember when I did the big Mojo piece on the Cocteaus, I did get him on the phone, and he was sort of somewhere outside Santa Fe, I think, which is an unlikely place for the 4AD.
I had a lovely email from him a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had any real contact with him. A few nice
Right.
emails over the years when he'd said nice things about some of the bands I'd released on my own label. But he wrote a really lovely letter, and he was very cute because he'd heard my book was coming out, and I think he was like, "Have you trashed me in the book?" And I was
you
like,
really
"No,
don't.
I haven't.
You really don't.
That's not really me at all."
No.
Whatever gripes we had were, they're sort of dealt with, aren't they, a little bit? But I mean, I found him a really influential person in my life.
Sure.
And that's, I said it in the book, and I would say it forever, because what age was he? He was probably maybe 10 years older than all of us, something like that. So he was great looking, he was smart, he was elegant, he wore lovely clothes, he had great taste in art, books, cinema, music, of course.
Yeah.
And, when you're young and you're trying to expand your own sort of culture, he was an amazing person to hang out with, and I will always give him credit for that.
Yeah.
And maybe in a funny way, Bella Union, maybe there's things I learnt from how 4AD did things, or maybe things that I wasn't that happy about that have made me go the way I've gone.
Yeah, I mean, you talk talking about Bella Union is that one thing you did is never own the catalogue as
well,
such.
that's definitely true. Yeah.
And that's still a sticking point in terms of what happened to the Cocteau Twin stuff. I mean, it's a very brave thing to do, because the catalogue is what is of value. I mean, now when you get private equity funds buying catalogues, it's all about that value of this stuff.
Yeah, that's why I don't think that'll ever happen to us, because they'll go, "We love your label. How long do you have the rights for?" And I'm like, "Not long enough for you."
There's a big piece about private equity and the long read in the Guardian.
I
don't think the Blackstone Group are coming for your catalogue anytime soon. Thank God. I just did want to kind of hark back to. I want to talk briefly about Heaven or Las Vegas, but also I remember when I interviewed you, and I came to Twickenham to interview you guys in February '96, and I said, I think Full Calendar Cafe, which is the first album for Fontana, the major label that you defected to, I said, to me, it's as good as Heaven or Las Vegas. And you all went, "What the fuck? No one's ever said that." And you were all like completely taken aback. So you felt like, you'd produced another extraordinary record. And it just, for whatever reason, including this idea of like deserting the indie sector, that it just people didn't really pay it the attention
No,
that
I
Helen
definitely
and
feel
Helen
that's true.
had, and I still think it's a magnificent record.
That's an extraordinary prejudice that people had. The moment, my friend Kev Hopper was in a band called Stump. They were signed to a major. When they signed to a major label, the reaction against them
was Virgin, wasn't it?
Extraordinary. Yeah, it was a subsidiary. Yeah, the degree of hate that they got from like journalists and fans and so on.
Yeah, we definitely felt that too,
Yeah.
and I almost feel like, I was listening to the words that Elizabeth was now singing, which in a way are almost infused with way more feeling and emotion than maybe previous records had been. I thought the lyrics were incredible and so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Exactly. Profound and really quite brutal in many ways, on the sort of exit of their relationship.
Right.
Because they'd broken up,
Yes.
at this point. And I feel that was almost like, I don't think people even got it.
Yeah.
Because all they were reviewing was the fact that we weren't with 4AD anymore, and they felt hurt by that. And I mean, I do understand that to a degree, but maybe we felt at the time, maybe this is a record that people will grow to like in either after we're all dead and gone or just decades in the future, and maybe that will happen.
Maybe, I mean, imagine a parallel universe in which, so in this uncut thing, you chose Love Sexy by Prince as one of your albums, sort of desert island albums in a way, and you mentioned that Prince wanted to sign you to Paisley Park. Well, it could be a very different story, couldn't it?
Well, yeah, that would probably have been a disaster.
I think it would have been a disaster.
It would have been great for about 10 minutes until we realised what Paisley Park was going through.
You mentioned in the book that Prince sampled 50-50 Clown for this track by Martika, one of the many protégés that Prince had. I think it sort of runs right through the track, doesn't it?
Oh,
and he
yeah,
was a
it does.
massive Cocteaus fan.
Yeah.
Which, delights
it's one of
me,
the
I have to say.
most beautiful, it's a super flattering thing for someone that you admire.
Yeah.
To have nicked a bit off one of your tunes.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and nowadays probably the first thing would happen would be there would be a letter from the lawyer going, right, that'll cost you this.
Yes.
That back then, we didn't even know what to do. We didn't have that kind of thought in our mind. We were just like, oh my God, how exciting.
That's why I no longer run. Love, thy will be done.
Talking about the lyrics on Four Calendar Cafe, I remember that when I started writing at Mojo, Mark Ellen and Paul Denay asked me to write a feature about how Liz's lyrics had gone from being completely unintelligible to sort of being semi-intelligible. And I had to do this kind of grid thing where I tried to transcribe some of her old lyrics, which were just sort of, in a sense, kind of gobbledygook, because nobody could really understand. And then transcribed what I was hearing in songs like Know Who You Are at Every Age, and eventually the old Liz and the new Liz, but they are, I mean, when you do see those lyrics written down, you actually do transcribe. Is there a definitive sort of source for accurate transcription of Cocteau's lyrics? It's impossible.
I know. I mean, I've obviously on all the Cocteau Twins fan groups and on YouTube, even on Spotify. This was what was killing me. When you go on Spotify, you see the lyrics because they have some deal with one of these lyric sites. I can't remember which one it is, and they sort of import them in. So when the track plays, up comes the list. So I started seeing this, and I'm like, well, that's not it. That's not the lyrics.
I mean,
I told 4AD and Universe, I said, you have to get that taken off because anyone coming to the band new is going to look at that and go, well, those lyrics are nonsense. And, I mean, okay, maybe some of them might sound like nonsense, but actually, okay, whilst there's probably some tracks that are words that like butterfly names or Celtic words or foreign language words, I would say probably 75% of the records from when I was involved anyway, from Treasure through till Milk and Kisses, were perfectly intelligible lyrics,
except
written down, but maybe when you listen to them it's hard to, because you don't really hear the consonants,
right,
and it all just sort of blends into one. So she might take an ordinary sentence but it's sung over so many notes
Yeah,
that it loses its sort of meter.
Yeah, I mean, because listening to her voice is very much a sonic experience rather than literal experience in that respect.
Yes, and I think she was trying to hide what she was writing initially, because she wanted to put a mask on, because she wasn't totally confident in whatever. But then as she went through some therapy stuff and came out of the relationship and felt like I need to change what I'm doing and I'm living my life. That's when these sort of more straightforward lyrics came out.
I remember seeing you guys in probably about 1993 playing live somewhere in London. I don't remember where it was. And because I knew this guy Benny who was drumming with you at that point, so I knew a little bit about what happened, and you'd been out to like Meadows in Arizona or something like that. You'd been to or been off to treatment together.
Called Meadows, but it was called something like that.
Something like that, Flowers or Persephone or something.
Something.
But, and I remember seeing, I think we came backstage and saw Liz and Robin with the baby and all of that stuff. You say in the book, it was only then you realised what an incredibly traumatic childhood Liz had, and you just had not really understood until that point. Did she talk about that stuff when you were recording those songs?
No. I mean,
you were just inferring from the lyrics.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, because I could see all the lyrics when you see them written down on the music stand or whatever. And when you listen to them, because remember at this point that they're not a couple, so Robin's not always in the studio with Liz when she's recording, whereas previously we would have recorded all her vocals. Yes. Well, certainly from Bluebell Knoll onwards, he would have. So, yeah, it is like, oh my gosh, what? And I went out to the same therapy place, so I would have heard, these stories and got a little bit more inside info. But that's a lot of time to be in a band to not know anything about the people that you're in a band with, which shows how poorly we were able to communicate.
Like
verbally.
Most bands.
Well, it's not unusual, and I guess that's probably. I looked at it. I thought about it so much over the years. Like, how did we stay together for another 4 years after they broke up? That's weird.
Yeah.
It's really tough, there's only 3 of us in the writing group, and 2 of them break up. You'd think, well, that's the end of the band.
Yes.
And the fact that we kept. Why did we keep? Well, I think it's because it was the only thing, or the most important thing in our lives, that made us happy.
Yeah,
it's about the only bit that worked. All the other bits were sort of falling apart. But the music still was what we were clinging to sort of for some kind of happiness or something. I'm not totally sure what it is.
When I listened back to that interview I did, and essentially you're on the point of breaking up. I mean, Liz is going to be calling you fairly soon after that interview to tell you that she's leaving. But it's very good humoured, the interview. It's very friendly. You're all laughing, and so it's
we got on.
You did get on.
We managed our own weird little way to get on. Yeah, humour was obviously a big part of it. I think we got
Robin's sense of humour.
Robin's sense of humour was funny.
Dry to say the least.
Yes, dry and very black. Yes, but what can I say? I probably was really shocked when she told me, but sort of shocked and then like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Why did we even carry on that long? Yeah, of course. And I totally understood why she would say that. So,
You and Robin then form Bella Union Records.
Well, we'd actually already started it.
You had already started before Liz left.
Because our relationship with the next record label, Fontana, after we left 4AD, had sort of disintegrated to such a point that there was really no point putting out any further music with them.
Got it.
And we had started making a final record, or another record.
Yeah.
And I'd said before we went to Universal, before we signed with Fontana, I said we should start our own label. Remember the discussions, and everyone was like, well, no, it's just a bit too much to do. So we signed to Fontana, and then when that went wrong, it's like, right, we're going to do this label now, and we'll just put out our own stuff, and that's all we'll do. Collaborations, solo records. and it'll be a nice thing. We've got our own beautiful studio in Richmond on the river, and where you came to see us, this is just perfect. And then Liz leaves, and then, it's like, oh, okay, well, let's try putting something out, and that's how that whole thing started. But 27 years later, I'm like, wow, that's not something I ever saw happening.
Yeah. That was fantastic. Robin left the label quite soon after that, didn't he?
2001. something
Right.
like that,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was never really his. I mean, that's the thing. It was never really anyone's thing.
Right.
But I kind of felt like I could do it.
Yeah.
But having two people running it and sort of have quite different taste and different approaches to doing things definitely created some tension and friction there, and it never really felt like it was being going in one direction. It was going in two that didn't really feel right.
I mean, the book's fascinating about all the struggles of keeping the label going.
Unbelievable.
Losing your studio, effectively. It's extraordinary that the label survived as long as it has. It's a very. You're very nice about the people you work with. You've got these kind of young women working in the office who are really good at their jobs and so on and so forth. And it's. I get this feeling that one of the things that drove you to keep the label going was loyalty to the people that you worked with, and the music as well, obviously.
Yeah, and not wanting, not wanting to give up on something just because it went a bit south.
Yeah.
Or when things, the things that went wrong were not of our doing.
Right.
Yeah, well, the collapse of Pinnacle.
The collapse of the two labels.
£100,000 you lost.
Twice.
Twice.
Well, V2 owed us 100 and Pinnacle owed us 100. Obviously, the studio going bust was partly as a result of the band not existing anymore. Of having spent all the money, had all this equipment. We didn't pay any tax. We didn't pay any VAT. All these things sort of suddenly came to a head. It was like, well, why are we paying 60 grand a year for a recording studio when we don't have any money coming in? Yes. The numbers weren't really adding up, and I think it was probably good that happened.
I mean, we had Jeff Travis on our podcast a long time ago. We were one of the early
in
ones.
lockdown. He was a lockdown guest.
And he talked about going bankrupt 3 times.
Sure. You've got to have real stamina to run a record label. I mean, I found just reading about what you've been through at Bella Union was stressful enough. Yeah. And I was thinking, I just wouldn't have slept at night. I love the story about Lawrence Bell of Domino's saying, just wait till the 11th year.
It's fantastic.
It'll all be okay in the 11th year.
I bumped into him the other day. He said, I heard you got a book coming out. I said, yeah, I'll send you a copy because I think you need to read a certain chapter because I do credit you for quite a significant thing.
Yeah, and he was absolutely right.
Yeah, he was absolutely right. The following year, the Fleet Foxes happened. And
so anyone out there struggling with an independent record label, just wait. However many years it is, don't give up before you get to the 11th.
I thought there's no way I'm getting through till 11. I mean, I've just had enough of it already.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it worked.
The Fleet Foxes was huge, wasn't it? It was.
I mean, it was our biggest band by a million miles.
I mean, should we go back to? I mean, so if you talk about different tastes from Robin, I mean, Robin would probably really never have been interested in groups like Midlake or Fleet Foxes. Too American, really, I would imagine. So, what did you know you were going to be looking at a kind of America? Were you starting to incline to it? I mean, I know Dirty Three was sort of, and then the Tars were the sort of first 2 acts that you write about. Were you kind of, was there something happening in America that that got your attention?
I mean, I went to South by Southwest. That was really
the sort of that anyway. Yeah,
that was the first time I'd been out. I'd been to CMJ a couple of times in New York, and then South by Southwest in Austin had been going a few years, and somebody said, "Oh, you should go to that to find some new bands." So I started going there literally every year, and at this point, I'm not enjoying any British music at all in general. I'm looking around, I'm just like, I don't like the sounds, I don't like what these bands are doing. It all seems just sort of a rehash of things from before. I mean, not that Midlake isn't a rehash of things from before, but,
but it's a better rehash than Oasis.
It's different. Yes, you're right, kind of exactly what you said, much more eloquently than I could say it. So, that's what I was finding. I was going out there, enjoying the time, enjoying being in Austin. I mean, it's a great city, right? South by at that point was a really brilliant place to be. You could sign a brilliant band, with 3 other people in the room. Within 10 years, you couldn't do that. You almost had to be signed before you went to South by. Back then, you went most of the bands, they were unsigned.
Yeah.
They didn't have the big headliners like they do now. So it's a great place for discovery.
Well, in the book, you make the process of finding artists really exciting to read, because your own excitement about finding these artists really comes through on the page. You know, you go to some room and there's some band or singer doing what they do, and you talk about how basically their hair stands up in the back of your neck, and and then the extraordinary thing is, they're thinking, "Who are you?" and you're sort of backwards and forwards, and yet then you get a phone call, like, you know, a month later from America saying, "Yes, we want to sort of go with you," and things like that. So,
the Fleet Foxes story was crazy, because I was about to give up the label at the, literally 5 minutes before I heard White Winter Hymnal, the demo, the demo of White Winter Hymnal,
which was on MySpace.
Yes, good old MySpace.
Yeah.
And
you were in Norway.
Yeah, I was
in
in
a hotel
Norway,
room.
just like thinking. Because when you go away, sometimes you're going through something in your life, whether it's a personal relationship. Sometimes you're going away, you sort of can look down in your life a bit more and go, okay, I need to get rid of that relationship, or I need to get rid of that person in my life. And I was feeling a bit like that with the label, so I'm like, gosh, Midlake should have been bigger than this, and Trials of Occupantha had not sold as well as I thought it should have. And I was thinking, maybe I'm not as good at doing this as I thought I might be. But then I sort of went to bed, saw this message from a friend who was the agent in America for Beach House, and I read the message. I could easily not have, and I think that's one interesting part of the book too, which we maybe touch on later, is why you do this but you don't do that.
Right.
Like in the book, in the record shop back in 1980, whatever it was, when the door knocked at 9:30 in the morning. I mean, had I been in the toilet,
you'd never.
Would we be here right now?
Yeah.
If when I got to my room that night thinking I'm going to give the label up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, I'll press this link on this thing this guy's just sent me, and I don't want to listen to it, but I'm going. If I'd have just went, no, I'm not going to.
Yeah, different story.
Different stories.
Yeah.
It's just tiny milliseconds choices. It's fascinating. And then listening to that song was a life-changing moment.
I mean, I can't remember if it was on one of those, kind of attached CDs on the cover of like
Uncut magazine.
I remember hearing Head Home by Midlake. Most of those things just leave me absolutely, I don't bother listening to them anymore. I remember the one that had Head Home on it by Midlake, and I just thought, oh my God, I love that. I just played it over and over again. Then the album came out, absolutely loved the album. And I think the same thing happened with Mykonos. I don't know if it was on one of those like sampler things, but I was listening to it, and it gets to that moment. You'll know the moment I'm talking about. I know exactly. It's 2 minutes 14 seconds in, where it just stops, and then it goes into that, and it's just one of the great musical moments of my life. The rest of that song is just so moving and kind of sort of ecstatic. It was
a big moment.
Yeah, it's just
well, that was the song that really broke the record, because we were doing incredibly well. We'd probably got to 200,000 or 300,000 at that point, which is way like 10 times what I'd ever done before. But putting Mykonos out as a single was what changed things. I mean, the way the music industry is now compared to even just 2008 couldn't be more different. Imagine putting a single out from an album 6 months after it came out. You couldn't even do it if you wanted to. It just wouldn't happen. Radio would be like, we're not playing that. The record's been out 6 months. It doesn't happen. But back then, Mykonos went on the A-list at Radio 1. Again, would never happen now. No. A-list at Radio 2. Impossible. And A-list at 6 Music. And of course they're selling out every show they play. So the sort of weight of the momentum was massive. And then we started TV advertising the record. Again, you could never do that now on things like E4 and Channel 4. And that helped us take the album up to 1 million, which is literally insane.
I was waiting down at the ancient gate. You go where we go today. You go today.
I mean, obviously everything's changed in the last sort of decade or so, and streaming and downloading and so on and so forth. That must have had a massive impact on your ability to make money as a small independent label.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel there's any way out of this now? How do you feel about the way it is now? And do you find it as a struggle, an endless struggle?
I swing back and forth with it. I mean, yes, financially it's crippling. It's very hard for the... it's all right for me because I've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
The Cocteau Twins have never been more popular than we are now. That side of,
So do the Cocteau Twins make you money now?
Yeah.
Decent money?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
of the streaming.
Streaming.
TikTok, all that
and
stuff.
In films.
Oh, that less so.
Less so.
What happens is, when you're in a film, even you might get $1,000, $2,000 for a film or a TV show, but when people are watching it at home and they're going, oh, what's that? And they're Shazamming it.
Exactly.
And then they go on streaming it. I mean, actually, See Swallow Me from the Harold Budd album is the biggest song on...
I saw that on Spotify.
It's all because of TikTok. So this stuff is happening to bands like Beach House. Beach House just streamed their billionth stream of Space Song, all because of TikTok. So bands are able to make money, but a very small percentage.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's so many more, millions of bands that aren't able to make any money because the streaming income is just so feeble.
And it's so unstructured as well. You say that if something goes viral on TikTok, it's not like you have any control over whether that happens. So it's not like you can forecast.
You can't make it happen. And of course, the big majors
can't force it either.
The majors are trying so hard.
Trying to force it.
Look, Space Song just did 1 billion. We can do 1 billion, and they try and make it happen. Of course, you can't because it has to be organic. It has to come from the kids that are posting these little videos in the first place.
Which I suppose there's something
lovely
positive
thing.
about
That's the positive of TikTok. No, that's a very strange thing to say.
In a way, you're right. It's on one hand, it's almost fantastic that something can just explode in that sort of way. But the way in which the streaming services pay the artists is completely wrong, corrupt, basically.
Exactly.
It's entirely skewed towards the major labels.
Yeah.
I mean, the money I spend on my Spotify... that should be going to whoever administers Sun Ra's estate, not to Beyonce. But the fact is that the way in which the major label structure is all wrong. Do you see that ever changing? I mean, are we stuck with these current structures?
I think so. I mean, I encourage everyone to buy stuff off Bandcamp.
Yes.
But I mean, I can only shout at a certain volume to be heard above the people that have much more influence than I do. And I've got to that point. I'm 62 and I'm like, I still buy records every single day. I still go to record shops. I still have a record shop. I have a record shop.
Yes, in Brighton.
Yeah. So I feel like I've done my bit and I'm trying to make my community small and contained.
Yes.
So I do my label. I don't give bands stupid money unless they're like Father John Misty and they can earn it.
Yeah.
But baby bands, new bands, I won't give anyone a load of money. It's just stupid. It would be like throwing money away.
I mean, also you don't need to so much anymore because you can record.
You can record for nothing.
For literally for nothing. I mean, when I was getting my first bands together at sort of the end of the 70s, early 80s, you'd save up all your money from doing some shit job just to go into some crappy 8-track to do a demo or something, And now, I mean, my MacBook and a few decent microphones, I could bloody do all kinds of stuff if I could be asked. If I wanted to anymore.
You mentioned Beach House, who I absolutely adore as well. I mean, there came a point, Midlake, Fleet Foxes, Beach House. I can remember just consciously thinking, that Simon Raymonde, he actually does really know what he's doing. He's got, do you know what I mean? This isn't a fluke. He's signing and releasing some pretty amazing bands here. I mean, I don't love everything with Sion Bellow Union, of course not, but you've gone on. There's John Grant, Queen of Denmark, was like album of the year in numerous magazines, and you mentioned Father John Misty, who was obviously as a drummer in Fleet Foxes. This is an incredible catalogue, for a guy who just used to work at our price in Vegas. But I mean, kudos to you. And I know it's been a struggle, a long way. There've been at least 2 or 3 times where you've almost given up. And I just think it's extraordinary to have kind of persevered in the way you have. I don't think many...
Well, look at us all here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We persevere.
Yeah, because we can't do anything else.
Oh, yeah, that's it. We can't do anything else. So it's not heroic at all.
And it is a great job. That's the thing I always come back to. Because, of course you're going to moan about X, Y, and Z, because that's what humans do. But, the reality is I absolutely love my job. And I don't even think of it as a job. I think of it as a hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, you can count the number of musicians who've made record labels that worked on the finger of one finger, basically. It's incredibly rare for musicians to be able to make that transition.
Yeah.
That really is something.
I think it is.
How do you balance... I mean, you talked about how when you got started, there was you and Robin, and there were two different directions. And obviously, you've been running Bella Union now, you said 27 years. How much is it still that you direct everything that's going on? How much are you able to let go of? And how do you sort of balance all of that?
Well, at one point, I sort of thought maybe it'd be good to get some other... but it's not like I'm a control freak, but I think, I spent such a long time having... I don't think it's purely a reflection of just what I like, because I want to involve everyone else. If it was just about me, then it would be a very vain kind of vanity project, and I like all the staff having some ownership about it.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's me going to them and saying, I've got this, but I think they're incredible, but I need you to tell me what you all think too.
Yeah.
There's no point in just being about what I like, because they've got to work on it, and I need them to be incredibly enthusiastic about it, because I'm I've got other things in my life other than just shouting from the parapet about these bands that no one's heard of. So I need it to be a group thing, and luckily everyone at Bella Union works there. There's 5 of us. They've all been there between 12 and 25 years.
That's amazing.
So they're all really committed. Our radio team has been there 27 years.
Well, I mean, this...
so it's a family
which
thing.
speaks to what I was saying earlier about one of the things you like about the label is the people that you work with, in a way, and clearly that's a reciprocal thing. I think
it's nice having a family. I don't have much of a family. My parents are both dead, and I have my wife and my brother, and that's it. So having a sort of extended family of musicians who I'm really close to on the friendly side, people that work at the label who I can rely on, to help me help the bands, because that's I think I'm good at helping is what it's all about, really. I'm good at helping.
I think that's what sort of stops it from being an ego trip. It's very clear that you have an idea of what Bella Union is and should be, but without it being a kind of
that's exactly it. I like the music that I pick. I'm very proud of it. But once I've made that decision, I want the bands to be successful, and you can only do that by understanding them. And I have to make the decisions being a musician first, and a label person second. Right. That's maybe what makes it different from, another label, because I just get what they're trying to do.
Yes.
The last picture in the book, In One Ear, Cocteau Twins, Ivor and me, is a lovely pic of you with your Ivor Novello Visionary Award 2 years ago. And a picture taken by Fiona Glyn-Jones, who helps to run Bella Union. So I like that, visionary. You've had a vision for this label. I think we could wrap up that just talking about Bella Union with, just mentioning Flaming Lips. You signed Flaming Lips, who were a huge band for me in the 90s and noughties and so forth. And just, without wanting to sort of upset you, obviously we learnt in a couple of days ago about Nell Smith. And so would you mind just talking a bit about Nell and that extraordinary story you write? At that point, I hadn't got to that point in the book where you talk about this kid coming in and joining Flaming Lips on stage. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about
it's a really
Nell
beautiful
and the
story.
Lips?
So, family originally from Leeds, from Yorkshire, moved away to Canada for work reasons a couple of decades ago. Had a few children, but one of their kids, Nell, the dad and Nell would go to gigs together. It was their thing to do. They went to see the Flaming Lips. Jude, the father, is a big fan of Flaming Lips, would take her along. I think her first show was when she was 11. And she, because the Lips concerts are very, aren't they? They're like parties. They're like a sort of end of the world party, and people dressed up in costumes, and Nell was dressed up, I think, as a parrot, the very first concert she went to, and she found herself eye to eye with Wayne Coyne in his big globe, in his ball. And she knew all the words to all the songs, so she was singing along with him singing, if that makes sense. And Wayne obviously remembered it, and then I think, a year or two later, she went to another show, and a similar thing happened. She said, I remember you. So they built up this little kind of acknowledgement of each other, or certainly Wayne did, and invited her to come and visit their studios one day with her dad. And they got chatting, and he asked if she'd ever sort of wanted to be a singer or do anything in music, and she said, yeah, I'd love to be a musician. So one thing led to another, and Wayne said, well, why don't we do a track together? Let's do it. Have you ever heard of Nick Cave? No. Okay, we'll record a Nick Cave song, and maybe you can sing it. So they did a Nick Cave song, and she sung it. And then they ended up making a whole album of Nick Cave covers. Yeah. So this was probably 2019 or something like that, lockdown sort of time.
Yeah.
And she was 14 by now, so still super young. Because of our relationship with Lips had already, been going for quite a while. I think we put the Terror album out in 2012, something like that. So we've been working with them quite a long time. Mm. And they asked if I'd be interested in putting it out. I listened to it. I was like, yeah, I think it's fantastic. And the day we were about to put it out, Nick Cave wrote on his Red Right Hand files that he'd just heard this girl singing a cover of his song, and he was moved to tears by it. He was like the most beautiful cover version he'd ever heard, and she had, she just got the tone perfectly right. In fact, she got the tone even better than I did, and it was just, I was like, wow, this is like the best advert for this record ever. Yeah. So we put the record out. Nick was obviously incredibly nice. So was his wife Susie. She made like a dress for Nell when she played gigs with the Flaming Lips. So this whole relationship was really beautiful, and it was lovely to see Wayne, be so sweet with her and the father, and he's obviously got his own kids now. So he's a great man, Wayne. He's an absolutely great man. And so after that record came out, she's now getting to 15, 16, and she's wondering what she should do next. And I said, well, look, you've got to write your own songs, really. You can't be doing cover versions all your life. Otherwise, you want to sort of get your own career up and running. So we invited her to the UK about a year and a half ago to work with a band that I manage that's also on Bell Union called Penelope Isles. Brother and sister duo who live in Brighton. The sweetest kids I've ever worked with. I mean, they are like my children. Me and my wife adore them, and we see them literally every day. And I knew that Nell would get on with them because, they're only 10 years apart. And they did. And we put them in our studio. She lived in our house, me and my wife, with her dad, while the record was made. And, we finished a record with her writing the songs with the Penelope House kids. And she went back to Canada, where she lives with her parents, and sort of finished some schooling. And then we planned to put the record out in February. And then on Sunday, her dad sent me a message on WhatsApp saying that he had some bad news. Could he call me? It was about 11 p.m. And I called him straight back, and he told me that she died in a car crash on Sunday night in British Columbia, where they live. And all our worlds kind of just went crazy.
It's heartbreaking.
It's the most heartbreaking thing I can think of in the last few years, and it's hard to know how to react, because what do you say to someone? What do you say to a parent? I
there are just no words.
I've got two kids of my own.
No words will do.
Yeah, so we've all been struggling a lot in the last few days, but life must go on. Yes. And Jude and Rachel, her parents, have been fantastic, and they really want this record to come out at some point at the appropriate moment when it feels good, so that people can honour her properly. But the reactions have been amazing. Warren Ellis and Nick Cave and Susie Cave and Wayne, everyone's left amazing messages on her Instagram and stuff. So I'm comforted by that a little bit, but I can't deny it's been a really tough week.
I don't believe in an intervention. invention is gone. But I know, darling, that you do. But if I did, I would kneel down and ask him not to intervene when it came to, oh, not to touch your hair on your head, to leave you as you are. And if you felt he had to direct you into my arms, into my arms, Lord, into my arms, Lord, into my
Well, thanks for speaking about that, and we will look forward to hearing that record, I hope, next year. So here's to the memory of Nell Smith, and thank you, thank you for just talking through your incredible career, Simon. We may have a little bit of time left to just talk about some pieces that have been added to the library.
Yeah, wonderful Val woman who's joined us very recently, writing Melody Maker 96, interviewing Sun Ra in his Lower East Side loft, crazily decorated Lower East Side loft. And he says, I guess they, the band, don't want to get left on the planet when I go out into space. They don't know whether I'm going or not, but they're not taking any chances. I'll be going very soon, because if flying saucers keep flying around the Earth, they have to take somebody, and I'm number one candidate. There's nothing here. It's too limited when there are other planets. It's awesome. It's marvellous.
I love the sort of detail of it, these actual flying saucers, and they're going to be picking me up.
One other thing is just a quote from Lester Bang's review of the Temptations' Sky's the Limit album, which has It's Just My Imagination and other things on it.
Yeah,
so
not
really,
a typical album for Lester to be reviewing, but hang on.
Well, listen to this. This album came straight out of left field. I'd all but forgotten about Motown as a force for anything but AM, meat and potatoes. And it captured me like no other single record I've heard yet this year. I found it. I need it now so badly that as I need my Mingus albums and Astral Weeks and White Light, White Heat and other life-sustaining collections even further afield. Buy it right away. It might well do the same for you. I mean, that's
fantastic.
Pretty fantastic
stuff.
I
love it.
I love it.
I love it. Yeah, but that's why he's never reviewed much soul or R&B.
No. I need it, italics. I need it now as badly as I need my Mingus albums and Astral Weeks and White Light, White Heat. I mean, that's fantastic. And it is a great record. It's a fantastic record.
Wonderful.
Jasper, what have you got?
Great stuff. I've got two things briefly. First of which is Alicia Keys' Move Over Macy, writes Stevie Chick in the Evening Standard in July 2001. Early interview with Alicia Keys. Thanks to William for adding it. I want to get politically involved, she says. The justice system in my country is a mess. Innocent people get imprisoned, executed. I grew up in Hell's Kitchen, a pretty rough district in Manhattan, and I saw friends get lost in the system, their lives absolutely ruined. When you see that kind of thing up close, you never forget it or stop fearing it. People in the public eye can bring attention to issues like that, and they should. And I think that's interesting because she has done that over the years. And in fact, I mean, the sort of loosely biographical musical that just came out is called Hell's Kitchen last year, I think, about her sort of experiences growing up. So, it's an interesting interview to read at that sort of juncture when she's just like on the precipice of like mega stardom. I mean, she really...
But also pointing out to stuff which is still
absolutely
as current
as relevant. Yeah,
there have been 2 executions in the last
3
weeks. 3 altogether of men who...
One of whom was certainly innocent.
Yeah, one of them... Well, I mean, I can't speak, but that seems to be the tenor of it, that these men were innocent.
Yes. It's a horrible story, just as you say. The other thing, Wine and Song, WHINE and Song, Amy Winehouse hits out at Girl Singers and Why She's One of the Very Best, Gavin Martin in the Daily Mirror, 5th of November 2004. Amy Winehouse is the elegant 22-year-old pot-smoking Camden jazz singer with the sharp tongue. And it's great because she's just wonderful.
Well, Gavin know all about pot smoking. I can say that from personal experience.
There are, however, questions you can't resist asking. Dido, for instance. She's not as good a singer as you, is she? She can sing her songs in tune, but if your songs are shit, it doesn't matter.
That's spot on.
I mean, it's great. And she goes on to speak out against being told to cover up. For the In My Bed video, I had a little tiny pink D&G dress on, and the woman at the record company handed me a long knee-length red dress. I was like, no, dear, I can't even walk in this dress. I always wear what I want to wear. They say things like, you have a Radio 2 audience, and the grands and grandpas might not think you're a lovely girl if you wear that dress. Well, you know what? Everyone's lovely gran and lovely granddad has had a life. They know what life is about. I don't think they care what I wear. I mean, just, you can't.
No, she's someone sad. It's just...
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to have been slagged off by Amy Winehouse, would you?
She was bang on, though.
I don't think you recover from Amy Winehouse.
No way back.
I described
Dido not had a hit since, has she?
No, I described Dido as having the stage presence of an open tin of cat food when I saw her with Eminem. She was just absolutely
poor Dido,
fucking hopeless. On that happy note.
Simon, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for joining us. It's been such a
Thank you
pleasure
very much.
speaking with you. I hope it's been at least painless for you.
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Good, wonderful. So we do have an outro message here, which I shall read. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow our podcast on whatever platform you use and give us a review if you can. Do also, of course, visit Rock's Back Pages itself. Check to see if your local library or academic institution subscribes to RBP. And if they don't, maybe suggest they take a free trial of the world's largest archive of music journalism. Do also buy Simon's book, In One Ear, Cocteau Twins, Ivor and Me, published by 9/8. We are label mates. That's how Tom Hibbert book was published by 9/8. We will be back in a fortnight with NME legend Chris Salovich. But for now, it's goodbye from us and it's goodbye from our guest. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Goodbye.
When you walk in the bar and you're dressed like a star, rocking your F me pumps.
That concludes episode 187 of the Rock's Back Pages podcast. Many thanks to special guest Simon Raymonde. In One Ear, Cocteau Twins, Ivor and Me is published by 9/8 Books and available now from all good bookshops. Visit the Bella Union Vinyl Shop at 25 Church Street in Brighton and online at bellaunionvinylshop.com. Those to Barney Hoskins and Mark Pringle, and it was co-hosted and produced by Jasper Murris and Bowie. The Rock's Back Pages podcast is part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. You can find thousands of articles, as well as hundreds of full-length audio interviews at rocksbackpages.com.
Don't be mad at me, 'cause you're pushing 30, and your old tricks no longer work. You should've known from the jump that you always get dumped, so Dusty